What is a Black Dossier?
First, it is important to understand that there is no series of Black Dossiers. Just one. And even the existence of a single one is like trafficking with the devil.
Understood. Then you can give me a comprehensive idea of what that single dossier is.
There's a certain aversion compulsion, irrational. To understand a Black Dossier, you have to start with the existence of its less profane siblings.
You mean the green, yellow, and red dossiers?
A trio of apocalypse scenarios, contingency plans. Think of them as an archive of what-ifs. Do you know what the doomsday clock is?
A symbol developed by the scientists that participated in the Manhattan Project after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, supposed to represent the likelihood of a human-made global catastrophe.
In the intelligence community, for that matter, in the higher shells of government, we supplement the doomsday clock with other metaphors, with other red flags.
Nuclear warfare, climate change, rise of artificial intelligence, biological and chemical, dogs and cats getting along together. You know, all of them. Well, you get the idea. On 2023, 2 years before it all went to shit, can I say that?
Yes, you can be as frank as you want.
Well, before it all went crazier than a pile of shithouse rats, the clock was set at 90 seconds to midnight. Midnight being, bye-bye, let's all go home, let's pack it all. The clock didn't take into account natural disasters, but late 70s, most intelligence agencies had adopted LAMOS, last man standing scenario.
And that's where the dossiers came from?
They were natural progressions, a combination of the two. Ledgers of nasty shit. We had all the brains thinking crap out, from mathematicians to folk reading ill omens and chicken entrails. And they were constantly updating them. They were a universal constant for everyone, for every nation, every government.
The very minute you got to a certain station in your government, you were given access to the dossiers. Green, yellow, and red.
Green was nightmare. All were nightmares. All were mass graves. But green was rational nightmare. You could get a good night's sleep with green.
Green basically detailed situations like war, famine, regional disasters.
Things that had limited scope. Scenarios where you could lend humanitarian aid, like in the Ukraine-Russian war. At the most, you could save a rattle.
Yellow was for international, would hurt all nations at once scenarios. For example, the COVID pandemic, the explosion of Krakatoa, that sort of thing.
Only friendly, cooperative, comrade nations would pull together. Outliers like Iran, Venezuela, Russia, China, Cuba, all of them weren't required to participate.
When you say required,
the dossiers were created in essence to regulate when nations had to act in unison. There was a pact for and by nations. Outliers included one that was made regardless of ideologies.
And finally, there was red. All hands on deck, the shit hit the fan.
Reds were apocalypse scenarios, what-ifs whose outcomes would determine the continuation of the human race.
Where only a small percentage of humanity would likely survive. We're talking about mass extinctions event, asteroid, alien invasion, a super flu.
You'd get a creative mind. One that would exasperate your stress levels rather than mitigate them. That was the dossier in a nutshell. No bullshit. Even if you were unfortunate enough and climbed even higher.
the Black Dossier.
Here's the thing about the Black Dossier. It messes with your mind. It's like reconciling the impossible with the possible. Think of it like coming to terms with Norse gods while praising Muhammad or Jesus.
Norse gods?
I was an exec at Marvel before I hit this Krishigega. I was given the Black Dossier after the details of it had already hit the mainstream.
You weren't affected by the mass psychological event, the one that occurred after Richard Birmingham's expedition, the event known as the transitioning.
That's what they are calling it now? We just called it pulling the plug. That fucker. Mind you, it wasn't his fault. He is nonetheless responsible for the largest genocide in human history.
Even if most deaths were self-inflicted,
Like I said, not his fault, but all those suicides and all that madness came out of that man's poison spring, out of that expedition.
Someone dropped the ball. The Black Dossier demanded. It was protocol. Richard Birmingham should have been taken out the second he started to fund his expeditions.
I was deemed sight fit enough to read them. Enough to read it, the Black Dossier. Do you know that only Barack Obama in the last 20 years before the awakening was permitted access to it? You could actually see it in his face when he got access to it. One day he was on the telly, charming as always, swimming, playing ball, graceful. The next, like someone had siphoned off a pound of his soap. We all bore that curse after reading a page or two.
Dad didn't know a damn thing. When you have that kind of money, the type you like to call fucking money, don't need to worry about anything kind of money, you build reality around you. Money as a point of singularity. Its own big bang, cosmic radiation. Plus, let's be honest, would you have believed him?
believed who?
You know them, the ones in charge. If they gave you access to this fairy tale, the Black Dossier, back then, would you have believed them?
You miss him. He died just a couple of weeks ago.
The man that came back from that expedition wasn't my dad. He was a bit prickly before, but a kind and brilliant man. After the expedition, well, you've seen the tapes.
I would have live streamed it and made off like a bandit, just like Richard did. It drove everyone batshit insane and recreated humanity, but Richard, back then, didn't even know what he would find.
It took us thousands of years to develop from hunter-gatherers to an agricultural society. And then, just a couple of centuries, half that time, to develop from that to an industrial age. Less than 300 years to make the leap into nuclear revolution after that. And less than 40 years to transition to the information era. Science became our religion. The beauty of any religious mania is its ability to explain everything.
Take me. I'm a practicing Jew.
Even after the awakening,
Kid, now more than ever. Back then, if my rabbi were to say, today it's going to snow, I'd first check my iPhone before taking on my winter boots.
and today,
Rabbi Ben took a nosedive out the window of my synagogue after he helped transition our congregation. And today, if my iPhone says snow, I'll be lucky if we get a swarm of locusts.
Then my dad and the expedition. Just 2 minutes of live footage, and it all went to hell.
So we have the green, yellow, and red dossiers.
Green, yellow, and red, and black. The last a reality-killing scenario.
On that day, 15 years ago, the Black Dossier scenario, the only one, went live.
Grainy footage in the Pacific Ocean in Point Nemo. You know where they toss all those satellites that come crashing down to Earth? That's all it took to make humanity renounce everything. Even their gods, digital, pagan, whatever.
Before the awakening, you drop the ball, it hit the ground. Gravity. Now, maybe you drop a ball, it turns into a dog.
That's the Black Dossier, akin to a presence charter. And we disturbed the lock on those cells. Since the late 15th century, we have known of that construct, and we became complacent.
Someone should have killed him. I love my dad, but someone should have put 2 bullets in the back of his head.
We are in the age of post-reality. The universe glitching daily.
could you elaborate? There's so much we still need to understand about the ADE anomaly for the report.